All right, today we are diving into a massive century-long chain reaction. We're talking about a domino effect that connects the huge conflicts of the 20th century to the environmental crises we're all facing right now. We're going to see how one single event can just ripple through time with consequences that, honestly, nobody could have seen coming.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, right? Like a riddle. But this is the central question we're going to tackle. We are literally going to follow a single thread from a gunshot way back in 1914 all the way to the droughts and floods that are happening in our world today.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the early 1900s, and you have to understand, Europe at this time wasn't just a continent, it was a powder keg, just packed with tension, ready to explode. All it needed was a single spark.
So you might be asking, what exactly made it so volatile? Well, historians have this really handy acronym to break it all down. MAIN. First up, M is for militarism. You've got this massive arms race happening with countries like Britain and Germany just building up these huge armies and navies. Then you've got A for alliances. This was a super complex web of secret treaties that basically split the continent into two armed camps. I is for imperialism, this fierce competition for colonies and resources, creating some really intense rivalries. And finally, N for nationalism. This was just an explosive mix of extreme pride that fueled the big empires, but also sparked movements for independence.
And here it is. This was the spark. On June 28, 1914, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, a guy named Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated. It happened in Sarajevo, carried out by a Serbian nationalist. And that one single shot, that was the match that lit the fuse of that global powder keg we were just talking about. It triggered a catastrophe that was about to swallow the entire world. And this is where you can really see how that crazy web of alliances worked. Just watch how fast these dominoes fall. Step 1, Austria-Hungary attacks Serbia. Boom. Step 2, Russia, who's allied with Serbia, starts mobilizing its army. So then step 3, Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, declares war on Russia. Then they declare war on France and invade Belgium. And that's the final piece. Britain has to join in to defend Belgium. Just like that, in a little over a month, the whole of Europe is at war. It's wild.
And this wasn't like any war that had come before it. It was global, it was absolutely brutal, and it was industrial. We're talking about soldiers stuck in the mud of trench warfare, facing terrifying new weapons, things like the machine gun and poison gas. And you gotta remember, this wasn't just some European squabble. No, this was a true world war, pulling in soldiers from all over the globe, from colonies in Africa and Asia.
So the fighting eventually stops, but the war didn't just end. It completely shattered the old world order. The fallout from this conflict was just as huge as the war itself. It literally created a new map and a whole new set of problems. Let's start with the human cost, which is just staggering. 17 million people. That's military and civilian deaths combined. It's a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around that scale of loss and grief. Just unbelievable.
And check this out, this is the political transformation, and it's wild. Think of it as a before and after picture. On the left, you've got Europe in 1914, just dominated by these four huge empires, the German, Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and Ottoman. Now look at the right. Just 8 years later, they're gone, vanished, replaced by a whole bunch of new countries. The world map was literally redrawn because of this war.
Okay, let's zoom in on just one of those falling dominoes, the Russian Empire. Because when this one fell, it wasn't just an ending. Oh no, it was the beginning of something completely new, something that would change the world forever.
You see, Russia was already on shaky ground. It was led by a pretty weak czar, and the people were really suffering. World War I, that was the final straw. You had millions dead, massive food shortages. It just completely destroyed any trust people had left in the government. And that's when you see the strikes and protests just erupt everywhere.
So 1917 is the year it all blows up. In March, the Tsar gets overthrown. But the new government makes a huge mistake. They keep Russia in the war. So come November, Lenin and his Bolsheviks see their chance. They seize power with a simple but incredibly powerful promise to the desperate people: peace, land, and bread. And it worked. Okay, so we've watched the political dominoes fall, right? Empires have been shattered, maps have been redrawn. But
the very same forces that drove all that conflict, we're talking industrialization, that hunger for resources, well, they were also setting another, much slower set of dominoes in motion. And this new crisis, it isn't about borders or flags, it's about the very lifeblood of our planet.
This chart, wow, it really puts it all into perspective. We call Earth the blue planet, but get this, 97% of that water is salt water. So what about the other 3%? Well, most of that is fresh water locked up in ice, which means, and this is the really important part, only about 0.3% of all the water on this planet is actually easy for us to get to and use. That tiny sliver is all we have. It's an unbelievably precious and limited resource.
And that tiny fraction of water is under some serious pressure. I mean, you've got physical scarcity, just not enough rain in some places. You've got economic scarcity, where the infrastructure just isn't there to get the water to the people who need it. Then you have the huge demands from farming and industry. But then, the last one on this list, climate change, that's like a crisis multiplier. It takes all those other problems and just cranks them up to 11.
All right, this is it. This is where we bring it all together. So how in the world do we connect that powder keg from 1914 to the water crisis we're facing right now? Well, this is where our story really comes full circle.
First, let's get one thing straight, because it's super important, the difference between weather and climate. Weather is what's happening right now. You look outside, it's sunny or it's raining. Climate, on the other hand, is the long-term pattern. It's the average weather over 30 years or more. So when we talk about climate change, we're not talking about one rainy day. We're talking about a massive shift in those long-term patterns.
And here is the punchline, the direct link. You remember the Industrial Revolution, right? The engine that powered everything, the military buildups, the competition for empires, the sheer scale of the world wars, was burning fossil fuels, coal and oil. Well, that exact same engine has been pumping greenhouse gases into our atmosphere for more than a century, and it is fundamentally changing our planet's climate. And look, this isn't some abstract problem for our grandkids to worry about. These are the consequences happening right here, right now. We're seeing more intense droughts. Remember the Day Zero crisis in the Western Cape? We're seeing devastating floods in places like KZN, and it's directly impacting our ability to grow food. Those dominoes that started falling way back in 1914, well, they've led us right here. So back to our big question, how does a 100-year-old assassination connect to a 21st century drought? Well, now we know. It's through this incredible chain reaction of politics, industrial power, and ultimately environmental consequence. But the biggest takeaway here isn't just about understanding the past. It's realizing that this story, it isn't over. You, me, all of us, we're living in the next chapter, and the choices we make today are going to decide how it ends.